I didn't feel good enough for my wife, and I didn't feel good enough for my daughter. I looked for reasons. Midlife crisis didn't fit. Depression didn't fit. Eventually, I found out what the real issue was. For a long time, I felt I wasn't good enough for my wife or my daughter, and had this empty feeling that they probably deserve better. And I went looking for a name for it, and it wasn't a midlife crisis, and it wasn't depression. And eventually, I kind of figured out what it really, really was. If you go back to my previous video where I talk about the feeling of being disconnected, the feeling of drifting away from life, of being disconnected from my family, this would be a similar story. I remember just time and time again not feeling good enough. Yeah, just not feeling like I was good enough to be the best husband for my wife. I'm not good enough for being the best father to my daughter, even though I was doing all the things which, a father should do. But deep down, I knew it wasn't me turning up. And this was a very, very hard period of time, because on the front of it, I looked like a great dad. And I probably was a great dad, certainly compared to some dads out there. And I was probably a fantastic husband. I wasn't a horrible person. I wasn't a miserable person. And I wasn't a horrible dad. And I wasn't a miserable dad. I was just a disconnected husband and a disconnected dad. And felt like I was never giving my best. Always in the top of my head when I'm having family time, thinking of business. Yep. What's coming next? What goal have I got to aim for? Yep. Always in family time discussing business, because that would be top of my brain was goals, because that's where I was hiding from my life drift. And I remember taking some time out on my own in the motorhome. One afternoon, it was a Saturday afternoon, and I just had enough. And maybe there was a disagreement within the house. I took the motorhome, and it's one of those motorhomes where you have a bed over the driver's seat. And I remember lying in the bed thinking, what is wrong with me? Who am I? Why don't I feel good enough? And it all comes back to that disconnection, the disconnection of not knowing myself. How could I feel good enough for other people when I don't even know myself? Yeah, and I'm trying to get to know myself. How can I give my best to other people when I'm not giving the best to myself? And that day was kind of a really turning point to me. And I would have spent a few hours just lying there thinking in silence. And what I'm saying is, like I said, I wasn't like a horrible husband or a horrible dad. You put on a front, don't you? Yeah, but you put on a front of being this leader of the family. You put on this front of being this leader in business. And you can look absolutely fantastic out there. But it's that person who you speak to when it's just you and four walls, or in this case, me and a campervan. And that was when I really dug deep and really, worked out that this wasn't a midlife crisis. I had no urge to go and buy a new car or get a new tattoo or whatever people say a midlife crisis is. And it wasn't depression. It was not clinical. It was nothing clinical. It was just a disconnection, a drift, a life drift of who I once was and who I was today. This new person that I didn't know, this new identity that I didn't know, and clinging on to my old identity, wanting to stuff, but not embracing the new identity. And that was the issue. Yeah, that was the real issue. When I identified that issues, that's when I began to fix things. And I'm not saying, I went home, identified it, and it was all sorted overnight. But taking that time out, just me in that campervan for a few hours, no technology, no distractions, just me and my thoughts, getting to know the real me, that is when I really knew I had to turn the corner. And as I said, we put on this front, my wife and my daughter had no clue about us in this life drift. They really didn't. We're great at putting on a good front. So ultimately, I was a great dad and I was a great husband, but I did not feel like that. And when I'm disconnected from that, that is when the issues happen. So when I start to identify myself again, get to know myself, get to, know the real new identity, that is when I could reconnect with my family and start to feel like I was a part of that family unit and I was good enough to be in that family unit. I was giving my best. I was always good enough. To them, I was always good enough. To me, I wasn't. but I was able to give the best version of me, which ultimately, made me feel like I was good enough. This is where many men can get lost. Some men call it a midlife crisis. Some men call it depression. And I would say it's neither. If you feel like you do not know the identity of who you really are, it's called the drift. Yeah, I've put a name on it. It's called the drift. And in order to fix the drift, it takes a totally different step from depression or a midlife crisis. It's about getting to know who you really, really are again, getting to love who you really are again, getting to like that person you are, and showing up as the best person of yourself to your friends and to your family and to those what matter. So if something resonated with you today, subscribe to the channel. I am Scott Watson, and this is The Drift.